Hi there, I'm Cary Ellis, author of 21st Century Superhuman, and today we are going to talk about shift of the ages. We are living in times of great change on planet Earth, and today I have with me a couple of very wise, wonderful men who I've been working with over the last few years. I love their insights and their attention to what's going on in today's world. I'm going to let them each introduce themselves. Phil, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah, go
My
for
name's
it.
Phil Stallard. I'm living down in Australia and have been concerned about the state of geopolitics now for the last 10 years and more. And it seems to me that our world is going through birth pains at the moment. There's an old world that's struggling to survive and hanging on for dear life.
Very
And
much
there's a
so.
new world that is ready to be born. And there's lots of people that have jumped over into this new lifestyle and experience. And we're a little bit frustrated that it seems to be taking a long time for this transition to take place. And I'd just like to say to people that are feeling frustrated to just breathe and smile, as my dear friend Cary says, and know that this will we will transition safely to a better, cleaner, brighter, and more safe world for all of us to live in. Mark.
Thanks, Phil. Yep. Marek, go ahead and love to hear from you as well.
Greetings and highest blessings. Phil, that was beautiful. You're right. I'm an American born. I call myself a Texican because I was born in Texas with Mexican heritage. And I now live in Mexico as of 17 years now. As a youth, I moved to Central and South America. So since a child, I speak Spanish natively. And I love being in both worlds at the same time, the Latin and the American, and it's a great boon to my life. Spiritually, I awakened. Actually, I've been a spiritual all my life, but in 2006, when The Secret came out, I was really awakened then to the new age, to the presence, and where we are, and awakened to the situation of the world at the time, and now as we're growing, we're in this great shift of the ages, and where we're at now is important to know where we're going, and knowing what the planet's doing, knowing that we're going through the same process of growth, of ascension, of transformation into unity, and recognizing all these fabrications. Everything we learned is not true, and learning the truth from our hearts is a whole nother journey. And I find that amazing and radical, and I love it. And seeing now the state of the world that it's in, which is clearly upside down, even in the most conservative minds, is to me a beautiful thing to see, because it shows that the shift is happening and we are fully in it. And each of us is here to do our part, to live our purpose, and to fulfill our puzzle piece in the great jigsaw puzzle of this galaxy that we are in. And with that, I'm in.
Beautiful, Mark. Thank you so much. One of the wonderful things that we talk about is that the Spanish-speaking population is really waking up as well. And I think Spanish is the second or third most spoken language on the planet. And we, because we're involved in Central and South American countries, we see this great awakening going on here as well. So guys, one of the things that really brought all of us together that has been part of our lives over the last few years is a lot going on with kind of, we'll call it a global reset. And we're talking about a reset of currency and how the economic systems work, because right now, so many things are just funneled up to a few at the top, and so many people on the planet are suffering. And Phil, you and I have been part of organizations over the years, and one of the things we've talked about a lot is repurposing. How do we repurpose things like a chemical production company such as Monsanto into something that can produce organic whole goods? So we talk about these real, true solutions that are really being worked on behind the scenes. Phil, do you want to speak to some of that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Cary. With Monsanto, it is important that we repurpose companies that are doing harm and creating loss and damage to not only the environment, to the health of the world's population. And Monsanto's assets have been collected over a couple of generations now from farming cooperatives, among others. So they've got, warehouses and facilities all over the world that could be returned back to local communities and put back to use by, the locals know best on what they want and how to use an asset. But by buying up, cooperatives all around the world and then subverting their activities to, to say that you need to buy these seed modifiers and you need to buy these chemical fertilizers. We don't need any of that stuff. We've got technology to grow microorganisms in soil. And if a farmer can grow soil, he can grow anything. And at the moment, the chemical industry is depleting the soils. And that's causing a drop in nutrition in the food. And we can reverse all of that. We can broad acre inject inoculants into the soils that will allow the microorganisms to grow and then provide the nutrients to the food so that the food will grow faster and taller and healthier and more nutritionally dense. So this is one way that we could repurpose something like Monsanto.
There's also other things behind the scenes that all of us have seen bits of, which I believe are real and are coming because the abundance that Mother Earth is and has and is coming forth and shall come forth. There are organizations around the world with funds that are out for the best of humanity at heart and mind and solutions.
The reason that got me into this conversation in the first place, 10 or 15 years ago, when I started to realize how much debt was in the world, and I asked the question, where's all the interest going? If there's, by some estimates, $700 trillion worth of debt in the world, somebody's getting the interest. And it doesn't seem to be the banks, because the banks keep going broke or, losing their share prices, and they're struggling, too big to be bailed out sort of problems. But it turns out that back in 2012, the trustee of the assets, the person, if you like, or the entity collecting the interest, changed hands. The person in control was let go because his time had expired, and a new person was given that responsibility. And that changed everything, because this new person has humanity's interest at heart. They don't want to continue the harvesting system. The harvesting system has virtually hoovered up all of the assets in the world where there's very little left for any of us. So if we continued another generation like that, the poverty in the world would go exponential. But fortunately for all of us, there's a new sheriff in town. And that new sheriff is going to enable the world to transition financially into a whole new economic paradigm that we can hardly imagine what it will look like.
Wow, Phil, that is really encouraging. I love it that you have this knowledge that is, it's behind the scenes stuff. Not everybody knows about this, but it's so important. And these are the conversations we need to have to give people vision, to give them hope, to give them the knowledge that this change actually is taking place, right? Amazing.
Yep.
Absolutely. We also know that there are entities behind the scenes that are not part of this old system, that are out, like Phil says, for the benefit of humanity, that have the best for humanity at heart, which is where we are, which is where we're going, which is the new earth, which we are now in our hearts at the moment. And we need to take these steps from where we are to where we're going, which I am a big proponent for. Yeah, basic income, which is a term which means that it's just a term that says share. We're going to share in the abundance that we have.
A lot of people think when we say that means socialism. So how do you see basic income as being a really viable way of?
Well, as a without getting into the term, that's kind of like getting into the term God. Everybody has their own opinion of that. So I use that very loosely with the basic income, because there are organizations around the world. I know of some in Africa, Indonesia, Russia, even Mexico has an account that's over 100 years old that has enough savings and dividends accrued in it, which is designed for the country of Mexico itself. it surpasses all debt, it surpasses all needs, and we just need to get past the existing system so that a new system can distribute this wealth.
And
this is just
when you
one.
talk about the existing system, you're talking about the banking system. In order for these kind of funds to move forward, there's been kind of a funneling of everything up to certain corporations at the top. And so there has to be some really intrinsic structural changes in order for this to take place, correct?
Of course, and I don't even talk about those now. I already consider them done and gone away, because my personal part, is to focus on what's coming and to be there and to know that this is where we're going, and holding that field so that this can take place. Yes, there are details, many details, but that's not the point right now. Right now we're talking overall, where we're going, and knowing that direction brings such peace in our hearts, just to know that there are people working behind the scenes that are accomplishing this in the countries in the United States, Russia, India, countries in Africa that are working for this. And there are people in every country around the world that feel this way for the benefit of humanity. And that fire is growing, and it's spreading like a wildfire right now. I can feel it in my soul, and that this is happening. And I love that. And it just gives me comfort to know that we're not going to be squeezed out of existence by an old slavery system, but that we are going to feel our enlightenment, that we are going to feel the purpose of who we are and fulfill that purpose in the days to come and in our lives right now.
Beautiful. So I'd like to toss out to each of you a question to answer. And that is, say a person is sitting listening to this and they say, wow, how can I get involved in that? That sounds really good. I'd like to be part of these new ideas and these new systems that you're talking about, but I have no idea how to get involved. Phil, you want to give us some insights in that? Because we've all been involved behind the scenes for a long time, and it's really how we've all met each other because of these involvements. And we know that there are what we call white hats. There's different organizations, humanitarian funding organizations that exist. But how does somebody jump in and get to play?
Well, there's a few ways that can happen in this moment. One of them is just doing the research yourself, understanding the challenges that we have around us, and sharing the information with your family and friends, because many people are suffering cognitive dissonance, or an inability to comprehend new information that contradicts what they've always understood. And that's a real challenge for a lot of people. So we've got to be gentle and kind and loving as we introduce these concepts to people. But it's important that everybody understands what we've been through and what's been done to us, in order that in generations' time we don't forget and slide backwards into this paradigm that we're trying to escape from now. But the other way of participating is joining a new organisation called Life Force, which is being set up at the moment by volunteers who have a bit, perhaps a bit more understanding of these topics, and they want to stand on the line and provide support and assistance for this transition to come in smoothly.
Well said. Yes. I can only go by my own experience with this answer, and that is that it was organic. It was feeling. It was contacts. It was people. It was, someone sent me a Skype message years ago that just said one little thing on it, and I answered it. And it was unusual, and it wasn't expected from that person, but there was something about it, and I answered it, and it took off into this huge, life-changing thing for me, which would take its whole 2 episodes to go through. But if you're listening to this recording right now, you are on that path. You are on this organic, heart-based path. And the new earth, in my opinion, is going to be a combination of science and spirituality. Yes, there is reason, but yes, there is also energy. There is intuition. There is more of our telepathy coming online, where your intuition plays an extremely huge part. Your feeling of energies, just listening to something and go, yeah, that makes me feel good, or going, I'm so bored I can go to sleep, then that's clearly not for you. But if it stings to your heart somehow, then you're going to be following that. And that's going to lead you to something else, to something else, to something else. And in my experience, I ended up in many different organizations, and each one I asked myself, how did I end up here doing this? And it was simply by following my heart, following those guidances. And that's a wonderful, magical way to live.
That's really beautiful. That's really well said. And both of you, we're greater together than we are alone, that every single person has a piece of the puzzle, that nobody is ahead of anyone else in getting this done. We each have different pieces of knowledge, different pieces of information, but it is by gathering together with community, finding other like-minded people, scattering ourselves further out into social media than we have been before. There's new platforms coming up where there's not so much censorship going on. Just reaching out and having open minds and hearts and getting to know other people who are on this path and are working towards these changes. Any last words of wisdom, guys? Phil?
Well, one of the changes beyond financial that is going to be brought in is the release of the 6,000 suppressed technologies. And we got a glimpse of what that could look like a few months ago when the American Navy released 2 patents. And one of them was for an electrical generator that can produce a terawatt of power from a machine the size of 1 cubic foot dimension. And a terawatt is like 100 nuclear power stations in capacity. Yet this thing fits into, in time, that technology will be shrunk down into a cubic millimetre and then installed in every phone, every fridge, every car and every device that needs electricity. So you never have to plug it in, you never have to have a battery, you never have to have wires spreading across the countryside from power station to everybody's home. One little unit could power the whole city if we plugged it into the existing electrical grid. But essentially, we can also put these generators in every device. You know, we can have a PowerPoint on your car, you can plug your toaster and your kettle into your car. All of these technologies are transformational in their capacity to empower humanity.
Well, I think I also get this question from people, you know, well, come on, when is it all going to be here? And either of you have an answer for that?
Well, one of the problems is enforcement. The guys that have run the world have had the CIA and the FBI and all sorts of other 3-letter agencies running amok. And we've got a fella in Australia that's invented, using a loose word, a way of running your car on water, you know, splitting the hydrogen and oxygen, turning it into water. But he and his colleagues around the world were, well, most of them were killed, and he was threatened enough to stop doing the work. But if he has a life force protection unit protecting him, he can finish the technology, he can put it out onto the marketplace, and we can all start enjoying this technology because it's available now. It's just that we're not allowed to sell it in a shop, or, you know, you get arrested or jailed or, you know, on trumped up charges. So this is where the sticking place that we're in at the moment is the enforcement. We need to be freed to be allowed to create these technologies and disperse them around the world. But at the moment, you know, there are powers in the world that are still stopping that.
And I think that's one of the things, that one of the efforts of the organization you just mentioned, Phil, is to begin circumventing some of these barriers that have been in our way. What are they called again?
Yeah. Life force.
Love what you're saying, Phil. I'm so excited for the technologies that have been suppressed to be coming out. Again, that's a whole nother chapter to get into that. I just can't wait for that. As a matter of fact, the question was when is this going to happen? And already I feel that we're behind and we're already delayed. And so to get out of time, I feel that to go into the quantum physics of it, if we feel that it's now passionately, because if our thoughts and our associated feelings create our environment, then what we feel passionately will create almost instantly. And so if we feel the passion of this happening now, that it's done now, then I feel that will attract it fast as it could come into being. It will allow the magic to do its work, and it will come into our hands just as we desire the apple to appear in our hand, and it will, which is, I feel, where we're going as well. So I can't wait. I love it. It's now, and here we are.
Yeah, the mind is like a magnet, and it attracts to it the frequencies and vibrations that harmonize with the thoughts that we keep in our mind. So by controlling your thoughts and being, you use the word passionate, and it's the passion and the heightened emotions that charge this magnetic energy in our mind that makes it more powerful to attract to us the circumstances and other things that will manifest this reality in front of our eyes.
Phil.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are very powerful beings. We
Yes.
just haven't been taught how to operate this human body that we've been given.
Well, and we're here at a very amazing time on planet Earth. We're in this time of great awakening. More light is pouring into the planet. We're like sleepy children waking up and rubbing our eyes and going, wow, I'm realizing that I have abilities and an ability to empower myself in my life that maybe humanity never before has quite had in history.
As the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, I learned recently that it actually totally becomes a gel of pure creative possibility.
Yes.
So the caterpillar doesn't really exist anymore to become the butterfly. And this is also the stage that we're at. We must totally dissolve what we used to be to become something that we've never been yet.
Beautiful.
So, thank you, Cary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
I want to thank you both for being here together today with us, and really great chat. And we will be having more of these. We want to invite everyone out there to join us as you can. And we'll put links below the video, and we look forward to seeing you as we talk more about the shift of the ages. Okay, you guys, ciao.
Highest gratitude and highest blessings.
Blessings, everyone. Thank you, Cary. Thank you, Mark.
And we want to remind you, as always, breathe, smile, and love. For as we change ourselves, we change the world.
Aho.